Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to Rule 8 Politics, the show where we always tell the truth or we at least don't lie. We're going to get to our predictions for the upcoming year, and this is going to be a good year. I feel it in my bones. 2020 sucked. This year is going to be good, but we're going to save our predictions for the end of the podcast. Right now, we're going to talk about something a little bit more pressing, something that's very important for the shape of politics for at least the next 2 years. And this is the Senate race going on in Georgia. There are two Republican incumbent senators, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who are up for reelection. They're being challenged by Democrats Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. And both races are very tight. Um, Senator Perdue is up against Jon Ossoff, and Kelly Loeffler is up against the Reverend Raphael Warnock. Both races are very tight. Could go either way. Um, Jeremy, you got any predictions? Who do you think is going to win, and who would you like to win in each race?
Well, man, I tell you, since November, like not much has really changed in the polls. I mean, I checked it out on 538 before we went live today. I mean, Ossoff and Warnock have a slight lead in the polls, like slightly up from November, but they're still well within the margin of error. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out because it's going to come down to voter turnout. Who shows up and who stays at home? That's what's really going to decide this election because, man, it is neck and neck. So between Ossoff and Perdue, we're looking at 49% to 47%. For Warnock and Loeffler, we're looking at 49% to 47% there too. So I mean, it's like it's a nail biter, and I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that once again we go into a whole nother recount. This is a special election, so they can't do it again, but you could stall the certification of the vote through another recount and what other shenanigans people might try to pull here.
Yeah,
But
and the stakes are very high because
yeah, and
the winner, if the Democrats win both these races, it's going to be a 50-50 tie in the Senate. And
mhm.
that means the Democrats actually have the majority because a tie, if they're voting on something and 50 senators say yes and the other 50 say nay, then the vice president will be Kamala Harris. She'll get to be the deciding vote. So the stakes are very high for both sides right now.
Yeah, they the Democrats cannot afford to lose this race. I mean, if they do, then I mean, just imagine nothing being done in the Senate for the next 2 years, or at least very little being done for the next 2 years. Not that much gets done anyway, but imagine even less than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super high stakes, and it's just like the way that politics play out now is, all politics are local and they are national. So the outcome
Mm-hmm.
of this race in Georgia will affect what happens in your day-to-day life. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's correct and appropriate that this race has garnered so much media attention, and because man, it's a big deal. It really is a
Mm-hmm.
big deal.
Yeah.
It's um, I know in the November election, I know I forget his name now, but the libertarian candidate down there, they really roasted that guy. He was really accused of splitting the vote down there, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that race in particular, and how they how no one came ahead with the Senate, but specifically when it came to the Republican side of things, how that damaged or really took away the Republican grasp of winning that election,
Mm-hmm.
really did a lot of damage to the Libertarian Party as a result. So I'm very curious to see how third party turnout um, ends up in this election here too.
Is there a third party on the ballot?
No, I believe they have been removed for this special
That's
election.
that's that's what I thought too. Um, that's interesting. Yeah. in November. I think at least the the Purdue Ossoff race. I think Purdue was just like 0.2 percentage points away from like getting the amount of votes he needed to become the next senator.
Mhm.
But Georgia, or to keep his seat, I should say. But Georgia has a rule where you have to have at least a 50% majority of the vote in order to actually win. And because of the Libertarian ticket in that race, and I think they may have had some other candidates involved too, it basically it split the ticket, and no candidate got over that 50% margin, although
Mhm.
Purdue was very, very close. And now it looks like John Ossoff is leading in the polls, not by a lot. It's within the margin of error, but all the polls that I'm seeing, he does have a slight advantage. So this is going to be very interesting. Also, though, there is the factor that I don't know how this is going to play out, but I know during the November election, when pollsters were calling people to see who they were going to vote for, um, it was well known that the Trump vote, the Republican vote, was underrepresented in the polls. So now that Trump's not on the ballot, I don't know how. I don't know if that's even going to be a factor anymore, right? Because back then, people, were afraid to say that they were voting for Trump, um, and a lot of people did show up and vote for him, even though he lost the election. It's just going to be interesting, is how accurate are these polls? Regardless of who wins, it's going to be very interesting to see how accurate the polls are, because this will be the first time we'll get to see whether or not the hidden Republican vote remains hidden or not. Post Trump, it's just going to be the first test of that. So yeah, I'm more interested in that, honestly, than the actual outcome of either of these races, because I'm not that big a fan of any of the candidates. Uh, I got my reasons for each. Do you have any preferences?
No, absolutely none.
None?
you know,
That's funny.
um,
And we
I
did
mean,
not discuss this beforehand, by the way. We talked a little bit, but we didn't ask each other's preferences. All right, so we both have no
no,
preference.
no. I mean, all right. Do I want the Democrats to win the Senate? Well, yes, for very specific reasons. But do I think Ossoff or Warnock are like champions of the Democratic Party, or like really represent like the future of the country and what this country needs? Not so much. I mean, I was not personally involved with the Georgia campaign like whatsoever. I didn't donate to anybody's campaign. I didn't, support anyone in real life or online, um, because I necessarily don't have a dog in the fight. However, that being said, yeah, I think it'd be great if the Democrats do have the majority of the Senate and the House for at least from now to 2022. And I think if we're gonna
Mhm.
get anything done as far as COVID relief, as far as kind of digging ourselves out of the rut that has been, well, I hesitate to say the last 4 years. That's not really accurate or true. However, the last year for sure, we have done some serious damage to this country that we do need to repair. And I think having a unified uh, House, Senate, and presidency can really help to change those things.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, it would definitely help the stimulus efforts.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what happened this past week with, I mean, hopefully everybody listening got their $600 check if you qualified. I should have qualified. I still haven't gotten it. Waiting on that. Uh, but there was an opportunity out there to get up to $2,000 a person, and because of divided government, because of Mitch McConnell, that got shut down. Um, I thought it was very interesting that there were actually a lot of Republicans that supported raising the direct checks from 600 to 2,000. That measure. So initially, the stimulus package passed with $600 direct checks going out to most Americans. And then Trump wanted to increase that to 2,000. Finally, he speaks up after this bill basically passed both chambers. Like, where's he been all this time, you know? But whatever. Late is better than him not having said anything at all. What happened was the Democrats, right away they jumped all over this. They're like, hell yeah, okay, let's increase it to $2,000. They had a vote in the House. It passed with bipartisan support. There were Republicans. I think 44 Republicans supported it in the House, which is a pretty good margin. And then Mitch McConnell basically said the only way they're going to vote on it in the Senate is if they also include two other things that Trump wanted to do, which was getting rid of Section 230 protections, liability protections for big tech companies, and establishing a commission to basically investigate the 2020 election, look for voter fraud and whatnot. Two things that the Democrats just have no interest of doing, and it effectively it killed any hopes of that increased direct check amount to $2,000 at least now, while the Republicans have the Senate. If the Democrats take over the Senate, or at least make it so there's a 50-50 split, and we'll have Vice President Harris the deciding factor, then we could get a larger stimulus payment. I think Joe Biden has said that he considers this stimulus bill a down payment, and there will be more stimulus after he gets elected. I mean, after he assumes the oath of office. But if the Senate goes Democrat, stimulus hopes are going to be greatly increased, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to me. Why I support the Democrats winning the Senate in Georgia is it comes down to stimulus relief more than anything, absolutely more than anything. And I think if you're going to have Republicans in the way obstructing it, then not much is going to get done. It's just going to be like we might get lucky if we get another $600 check, maybe. At best, I think we'd be looking at 600. So there have been some very generous proposals put forth by the Democratic Party that, especially with the new Congress coming into session, and we have people like Cori Bush, who, let me be very clear that I don't endorse or support it as her most of her policies. However, championing HR 6490 or 6496 or 9664. But anyway, the Guaranteed Money for the People's Act of recurring cash payments. I think that's something that I think at this point we should be beyond considering and moving towards actually enacting. So it's some very important stuff. And like, man, I think that what people hope and what people really need, I think has the potential of actually, being achieved through a Democratic Congress as far as when it comes to stimulus relief, because they're going to be giving away trillions of more dollars. More money is going to be spent. More money is going to be wasted. Just like we saw in the last relief bill, there was so much crap packed into that. Along with it, I mean, the NDAA, so much bullshit in that bill too, that it was cool to see that stuff get attention. But that's nothing new. I mean, there's crap packed in the legislation all the time that we never even know about.
Right.
But at least in this one situation, we were able to look at like, wow, the American people really got fucked over in this one. Like, we're going to give just millions and billions of dollars away to things that definitely don't need this money right now. But the American people who actually do need it, maybe next time, guys,
Yeah, we can't afford to give money to the people because we have to fund gender studies programs in Pakistan. It's crazy shit like that, and that's
right.
That's every single year.
Right. The Israeli border wall. It's like we can't do anything for the American tax. The hardworking blue collar class of this country, that these essential workers that we fucking talk about how we care about all the goddamn time, But hey, guys, first, real quick, we gotta go finish the wall in Israel first before we actually help you guys out. Or hey, Big Tobacco. I mean, your guys' profits have really been hurting with these people taking up this vaporizing thing.
Yeah,
Oh, you know what? Yeah, how about we shove this
yeah.
into a bill where we completely eliminate the online
Mhm.
commerce community of that whole sector of of a life saving thing that people rely on. But yeah, but that's
Yeah, and you
probably
know
a
who's
whole.
really hurting out there? It's who's really hurting, and we really have to help the racehorse owners out there. They
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
special tax cut.
Dude, my heart goes
What
out to
the
these.
fuck? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no. If you own a race horse, you're probably very wealthy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think poor people own racehorses. Geez, I mean, they'll be fine. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't. You can make arguments for all these programs. You could make a good argument for why we should be funding a gender study program in Pakistan. You absolutely could. But how do you say that program should take precedent over or take priority over helping out the struggling American poor? You can't. I mean, you gotta feed your own kids before you start feeding the world's kids. That's how I think about it. We got to help our own first. Um, it's a lot of poverty in this country, and we gotta look inward and stop trying to solve the world's problems. If we have a surplus and we've eliminated poverty here or we've made tremendous strides at doing so, then yes, we could try to help out the rest of the world a little bit. But right now we got so many problems in this country. um, I mean, even like just looking at the vaccines and whatnot, um, we're so far. This is another topic, and I'm sorry for going here, but we're so far behind where we thought we would be at this point in terms of vaccinating people. I think we missed our the goals of Project Warp Speed by like 90%. It's just ridiculous. We're gonna be dealing with this coronavirus for a long ass time, and that also means the economy. Um, we can't fully reopen the economy until the coronavirus is under control. So, that's more stimulus we're gonna have to keep on doing and doing until it's just a mess. We got to help our own before we
Mhm.
help the world.
Yeah, agreed, man. And I'm so surprised, to stay on the vaccine rollout thing just for a little bit longer. I can't believe there hasn't been
Mhm.
some kind of online registry for like people go in, put your information in, like this is where I live, this is my age, these are my pre-existing
Mhm.
conditions, like this is my job, this is my occupation. Like I am still completely unaware of like how is the government gonna contact me or how do I contact the
Right,
government to find out when I'm fucking eligible for this shit? Like
right,
I just gotta like just like at least have whispers or like a whispers of a plan. Say hey, like a plan's coming. Like we're gonna have a plan like next week, next month. Like
Mhm.
fucking say something instead of like right now it's just well I don't know, man. It's like we're looking at like maybe
Right.
2022 now, and all the like all the vaccines are gonna expire or something,
There is no plan, and let's face it. All the current administration cares about right now is trying to find a way to overturn the election. They don't care about the coronavirus. They don't care about the vaccines or Operation Warp Speed. I mean, during the debate, I remember Trump being asked about this and him saying something like, um, "Oh, I have a great plan to distribute the vaccines. The military is going to do it, and boom, it's going to be done really quickly. Everything's in place." Bullshit, bullshit.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
have vaccines just sitting there, and we don't know how to distribute it across the country. There are states that are saying that they were supposed to get X amount, and they're getting half that. It's just a mess, and it's going to be this way for a long time. Maybe hopefully the Biden administration can fix the problem, but that's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, no, we're in a little bit of trouble. But that's nothing new.
Yeah, I know. I definitely want. Last thing I want kind of want to say about the whole Georgia thing, it is,
Mhm.
in the right wing circles that I travel in, or the people that are even especially around me, I think if the Republicans lose in Georgia, I'm not sure if you can like solely blame it on, but I think you could more than anything, what would compel people not to vote for the Republican ticket here was the failure of the $2,000 stimulus. Like that seems to be,
Yeah.
I think, probably like the nail in the coffin for the Republicans there. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's absolutely no reason for Mitch McConnell to object to hearing that on the floor.
Mhm.
There was no political gain to obstruct that, and so I mean I
Mhm.
really don't know what their game plan is by shooting that down. I
They
just,
always cry. They always cry fiscal responsibility when it has to do with like money going to people who actually need it. But when it has to do with tax breaks for the wealthy or for corporations, uh, it's not a problem. Um, I thought it was interesting what McConnell said. What he basically did by tying this $2,000 increase to getting rid of Section 230 and to make establishing a commission to look into the election, because he knew it was going to kill the $2,000 stimulus effort. But what it allowed for was um, both Republican candidates in Georgia, uh, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, they both came out in support of the $2,000 stimulus, which was a surprise because most pundits
Mhm.
are saying they didn't expect them to be for this. All of a sudden, they come out in favor of the $2,000 stimulus, and Mitch McConnell, I think it was like the same day, decides to package the stimulus in with these other two things, effectively killing it. So they don't actually have to vote on it. And I thought that was kind of shady. They were definitely talking. Um, I mean, the Georgia Senate race is of top concern for Mitch McConnell, also for a lot of people in Washington, um, and they're trying to figure out how can we not look like we're against. Mitch McConnell doesn't mind being the Grim Reaper. I mean, he's been called
Mhm.
that kind of as an insult, and he's like actually endorsed being called the Grim Reaper because he kills all the bills. Um, yeah, and this is basically him. He gets to be the Grim Reaper again. He'll be the bad guy. And Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, the Republicans up for reelection, they get to look like the good guys because they supported the $2,000 increase. Um, when in reality, I don't think that was the case. I think this was kind of planned. They knew they weren't actually going to have to vote on it. They're both fiscal conservatives. Um, so, I mean, that's kind of speculation. There were Republicans who did, I think, genuinely supported the $2,000 stimulus package. Like Marco Rubio sent out a tweet uh, saying, I have his tweet here. He said, I am concerned about the debt, but working families have been hurt badly by the pandemic. This is why I supported $600 direct payments to working families, and if given the chance, will vote to increase the amount. So, I think he's very sincere about that. Marco Rubio, I think he did support the $2,000 payment. Um, Other senators, Republican senators, Josh Hawley, he definitely supported it. He was
Mhm.
actually a major advocate for it. Um, I don't know how sincere these two Georgian Republicans actually were, given the timing with Mitch McConnell and
Mhm.
I think their previous stances on stimulus. Um, just yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Mitch McConnell ousted as the majority leader. But I mean, that would even be kind of weird if it's a 50-50 split. Neither party is technically going to be a majority in the Senate. Does that office just disappear? Or do you know how that works?
I think Kamala would be the deciding vote for the majority leader there
She'd be
too.
the deciding vote, yes.
Yeah,
But what about the office of majority leader? Does that just disappear?
I don't think so. No, no, I'm pretty sure that if it's 50-50, then Kamala splits that vote, and then Chuck Schumer.
I guess Chuck Schumer would be the
Yeah,
majority leader. He'd be considered. Okay, yeah, that probably makes the most sense. Um, but yeah, and anything else on this? Oh, so so you kind of said that you'd prefer the Democrats win. Um, I definitely want more stimulus. I'm not just talking about money. Direct checks. I just think more stimulus is better than none. I mean, that's something that Jerome Powell said. The risks of doing too much are far less than the risks of not doing enough. So, just keep the printers hot right now, and we need stimulus, stimulate the economy until this virus is completely under control. So, in one sense, I would like the Democrats to win, and I'd like McConnell to lose his powers. But on the other hand, I think the Republicans do have a pretty good argument too, and that's that. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit that the Democrats want to do that I do think having a check against that would be pretty good as well. Like I'm sick of this defund the police shit. I'm tired of it. I think there's a lot of great police officers out there. I think the vast majority of them are good people trying to do their job, and it's just it's creating an unsafe environment, I think. I remember a few years ago in Dallas, there was a situation where there was a guy on the loose just shooting random cops. I don't want to see that happen here again. We got to lower the anti-police rhetoric in this country. Um, so we need to reform the police, but just defund the police. I don't want to see that being a winning message. Um, and there are just certain things that the Democrats want to do that I just think's a little bit is a little bit a little bit crazy. And this John Ossoff guy, he's only 33. I turned 32 in like a week or two. He's like basically my age. I am not qualified to be a senator, and it just blows my mind. How's this guy? How does he think he's qualified to be a senator? And I looked into him a little bit, and it's just kind of his background's kind of shady. He I don't know if you looked into this at all, but so he comes from money, right? The guy just screams privilege, which is kind of
Mm,
ironic because the Democrats are always
mm.
screaming white privilege and all this stuff. Um, the guy, the guys since Ossoff got interested in politics like 15 years ago, his dad has basically been writing big checks to Democratic politicians in the area, like you know, like big checks very consistently every year, donating to a ton of Democratic campaigns. He basically bought his way into Washington. Um, while he had a low paying job as one of his first gigs as a campaign staffer to first he was a volunteer for John Lewis, and then he was a staffer um, for Hank Johnson. Um, his dad bought him like a $500,000 house in Washington D.C. Um, and supposedly he's inherited John Ossoff, the 33-year-old. He's inherited somewhere between 2.3 million and 8.8 million dollars from his grandpa. uh, he he spent some time as a documentary producer. He was actually the CEO of the company, and the way he became CEO was he invested $250,000 into the company, and they made him the CEO. Like, I mean, this is not a regular person. This is someone who comes from deep privilege, has
Mhm.
a shit ton of money. That's how he's in the position to become a senator. I don't like that. It just doesn't sit well with me. I'd rather see somebody who, worked hard their whole life and rags to riches. I mean, um, the other Democrat in the race, Raphael Warnock, uh, he's a pastor. I don't think he's got a ton of money. His father was a pastor and a used car salesman, and his mother uh, picked cotton and tobacco uh, when he was a kid. He doesn't come from money. I like his background a hell of a lot more than this John Ossoff guy. And the other thing that kind of skews me out about John Ossoff is that for his documentaries, he was getting paid money from China. Um, and I mean, this may be completely legitimate and whatnot, but I guess I haven't watched his documentaries, but there's criticisms that he would focus on world issues and on Africa and emerging economies a lot. And China has, of course, invested a lot of money into Africa, and supposedly he's being accused of basically parroting uh, Chinese Communist Party talking points throughout his documentaries, constantly praising China and their willingness to invest in these countries, while at the same time criticizing the West constantly throughout his documentaries. That's a theme. I haven't actually watched them myself, but that's an accusation out there that he supposedly hasn't really addressed head on. Um, I don't like that. And his dad's got like a multi-million-dollar yacht built by the Chinese. And when the yacht was first built, they all went out and had a party on the yacht with a whole bunch of high-level Chinese dignitaries. So his family's got connections with the Chinese Communist Party somehow. And after what just happened with Eric Swalwell, we know they're trying to influence our politics here. I'm concerned to say the least. It may be nothing to worry about with him. I'm not saying that he is under the influence of the Chinese or he's corrupted. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a question mark. It's concerning, and something for Georgians to consider when they head to the polls. So I like one Democrat a lot more than I like the other Democrat. And the two Republicans,
Yeah.
Kelly Loeffler, she kind of seems like she married into money. I'm not all that thrilled about her, to be honest with you either. She basically married into money, and
Right.
she's like by far the richest senator in the country.
She was caught up in that.
I'm not.
She was caught up in that insider trading
Yeah.
scandal back in the beginning of the
Yes,
pandemic too.
and David Perdue.
Yeah.
Both Republicans were they got basically inside information. They were briefed saying that this virus is going to be really bad. We're going to have to shut down the economy, and they both immediately sold all their shares of like the cruise lines, the casinos, all the stuff that's going to take the biggest hit during the crisis. And I think they bought like stocks in medical companies. Yeah, that's not cool. That's not good.
Yeah. Everybody
I
sucks.
can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing if I was in that position, to be honest with you, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say,
know?
right? Hard to say. It's I'm not entirely sure how to approach that subject, but I definitely do think there are some ethical and moral problems with that type of business work. It's
Mhm.
I think, man, the more and more people can divest and have blind trust and not be involved with their previous business ventures when they are members of Congress, I think the better.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I mean, like, also look at it this way too. Like, whatever happens here, like, well, all right. So if Purdue and or Lothar, or I guess even Ossoff, you know, if they for those three, you know, I can't speak for Warnock, but for those three, like, if his election doesn't work out for him, like, they're gonna be okay, right? It's like their livelihood does not hinge
Right.
on winning this or not.
Right.
You know, it's any of them can all go be, you know, consultants or lobbyists or what have you. So it's unfortunate that it's so much of our democracy hinges on this one election. It's like,
Mhm.
basically, I mean, at least 3 out of 4 people kind of suck. You know, I don't have a whole I don't know a whole lot about Warnock either, but he does strike me as someone who's at least decent. You know,
Yeah.
I know the right tries to paint him as some kind of radical socialist on the left, but
Mhm.
like, you know, he's had stuff like
That's what they always do,
involvement
though.
with like Fidel. Exactly. I mean, like, they say
Yeah.
Joe Biden's a fucking socialist, for crying out loud. I, but yeah, I guess
Yeah.
if there's anybody, yeah, if there's anybody I'm gonna, like, quote, like, root for, that'd be Warnock. I mean, at least
Yeah.
give us Warnock, all right? Because
I agree
he's
with that.
you know, at least preferable to Loeffler.
You mentioned Fidel Castro. Yeah, I kind of heard that criticism. Supposedly, he hosted Fidel Castro at his church. If you have the opportunity, so communist countries, they don't believe in religion, and it's frowned upon. It's deeply frowned upon in those countries, to the extent. And I don't know the exact rules in Cuba, but historically, in most communist countries, religion is usually outright banned, or they make it very difficult to move up in life if you belong to a religious denomination. Um, if you have an opportunity to demonstrate that sense of community, and importance of of faith to one of these communist leaders, you take that opportunity, right? That should not be a criticism, having Fidel Castro in your church for a sermon. Um, I mean, if you're a religious person, if you're a Christian, I mean, the Bible says, preach the word of God. Spread the message, spread the good news, and that includes spreading it to people who aren't already Christians. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
especially people who
Right.
persecute Christians. Okay, Saul became Paul, who Saul in the Bible persecuted the Christians at first, and he's on his horse traveling to Damascus, and boom, the Holy Spirit comes to him and says, "You got to change your ways, Saul." And Saul says, "Oh shit, all right, I will, God." And basically, he changed his name, became Paul, and basically wrote half the Bible. That same guy who persecuted the Christians, most of the stories in the New Testament were written by him. All right, he became the most important evangelist, essentially. So people can change their ways. Uh, uh, I'm not trying to sound like a preacher here, but the blind and the deaf, their eyes and ears can be opened if given the opportunity. And that should not, you know, if the Republicans, who like to always try to pretend they're on the side of religion and God and all this, they should be praising Raphael Warnock for having Fidel Castro in his church. I was not. I had no idea I was going to go down that road, but I
Well
did.
said. It was well said.
Um, Thank you. That should not be a criticism. Anything else on the Georgian elections?
No, I'm just excited, man. I
No.
kind of wish I had taken vacation for this week, or at least vacation beginning on Tuesday, because man, it's going to be action packed, from here on out. Because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because right after Tuesday, on Wednesday, we got the certification of the Electoral College vote, and holy shit,
Yes.
oh man, it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. I think we all know that Joe Biden, at the end of the day, is going to become the next president. But there is, I guess you could say, one more opportunity for Trump and the Republicans to kind of overturn the election, and that's going to be on Wednesday. Congress is basically going to meet to certify the Electoral College. It'll be particularly interesting because the vice president, Mike Pence, is actually going to preside over the counting of the votes. You can look up the 2016 election, when they went through the same process. It was actually Joe Biden, who was the vice president at the time, officially declaring Donald Trump as the next president of the United States. So now, so this could get messy. This process could get a little bit messy. Well, why don't you take it from here and explain what's going to happen or what could happen?
All right. So on January 6th, both houses, or both the House and the Senate, are going to have a joint session, and they are going to certify the Electoral College votes. All right. So, to become president, you need 270 electoral votes to win. As it stands right now, what is it, 300 and some odd to 200 and some odd votes go heavily in favor to Joe Biden for this election cycle here. And there is planned some objections to the certification of a handful of states coming into this count here. All right, so objections to the vote are not uncommon. Okay, so we've had many. I'm in my early 30s. I've seen them. There was a 2001, 2005, and 2016. For those are the ones I know for sure, of where there was an objection to the electoral count, and then, well, at least twice, nothing happened. The third time, something did happen. So they went to the next step. All right. So anyway, let me explain the process a little bit better here. So when someone objects to the electoral count for a certain state, a member of the House or the Senate will approach, or I'm sorry, an objection requires a signed, a signed letter from a member of at least one member of the House and a member of the Senate for the objection to be entertained
for a particular state.
Yes.
Right. Like they both would have to object to Arizona's vote count or something.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's I could read the legalese here. If the vice president, the tellers read. All right, hold on. Here it is. While the tellers announce the results, members may object to the returns from any individual state as they are announced. Objections to individual states must be made in writing by at least one member each of the House and the Senate. If an objection meets these requirements, the joint session recesses and the two houses separate and debate the question in their respective chambers for a maximum of 2 hours. The two houses then vote separately to accept or reject the objection. They then reassemble in joint session and announce the result of their respective votes. An objection to a state electoral vote must be approved by both houses in order for any contested votes to be excluded. So, it seems to be that the Republicans are going to object, and they will have their. All right, so perhaps you can get some more concise information on what grounds the Republicans are planning to object this certification?
Um,
Oh.
I don't know if there are any grounds. I mean, they're basically saying that the vote was stolen. You know, there was illegal voting, and there's just we haven't seen proof of that. Um, it seems to
Right.
me like it's more of a political stunt than anything.
Yes, it is a big political
Right.
stunt. So, all right, so the allegations include stuff like mail-in voter fraud. Yeah, it's that's going to be like their big angle. It's going to be irregularities in mail-in voting versus in person. Were the processes in place followed for tallying the vote correctly? And I guess I mean like there was all kinds
It's
of chatter about all
allegations.
kinds of shenanigans. Right.
It's
And I mean, like
allegations,
people
but
saying that
nothing is backed up by anything.
no, absolutely not. I mean, there's been like 50 some odd court cases so far, and nothing has worked out in their favor. This is obviously not going to work out in their favor either. So, all right, it's going to be exciting though. It's going to be very fun to watch this all unfold. I mean, going back to 2016, it was a very exciting electoral certification process there too, where you had, I think it was around 11 Democratic members from the House. They all individually objected. They didn't have any support in the Senate, so nothing ever happened with it. But yeah, once again, there was allegations of Russian interference. We need a commission to look into it. Voter suppression and black neighborhoods and black states. But once again, there was nobody in the Senate to entertain it. One thing that was interesting in 2016 that I don't know if we're going to see here or if it's even possible here, because in 2016 nobody had any support in the Senate, so somebody would go up to the podium and start talking, and then they just like cut their microphone off, like they wouldn't even entertain the argument they were going to present. So it'll be very. I don't think this will happen, but I guess the potential exists for Mike Pence not even to hear or to receive the complaint from the people that approach the podium to make their objections. Which wouldn't that be crazy? But
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well,
but
wouldn't Mike Pence want the objections to move forward?
I mean, you would have thought that Joe Biden would have too, back in the last one. But he's like, no, it's over.
Yeah.
The election's done with. We need to move forward and get this ball rolling. I don't think that's going to be the case here on Wednesday. I do think that these objections will be received. The House and the Senate will have to break apart. They'll go do their thing for 2 hours. Neither the House or the Senate will vote in favor of the objections of tossing out the electoral votes of probably Pennsylvania. And then Joe Biden will be certified as the Electoral College victor on Wednesday, which will, and then what happens after? But also, I'm sure there's probably going to be protesters in the up in what do you call it? The galley, that second level. I mean, there's always protesters up there, so I'm sure something's going to go down again, and that'll be kind of fun to watch to see how many people show up, how many people get arrested, and that's just good democratic entertainment, is it not?
Yeah, I just hope nobody gets hurt. That's my main concern with that. But yeah, supposedly they're planning some massive protests out in the street too.
Yeah. So this is all right. So this will be the thing to keep your eye on immediately after the certification of the vote, because Joe Biden is 99.9% going to win this thing. And all right, so there is a large stop the steal type protest outside in DC that same day. And so the numbers I see speculated online are between like 10 and 15,000 people showing up to protest this thing. I think like we saw last time, for the most part, it'll just be normal Trump loyalist type. We're talking about normal middle-aged people. There's a lot of boomers, speaking with a broad brush here, a lot of people that will not be there to cause trouble. However, there definitely will be there people there as well to specifically cause trouble. Um,
Mhm.
I saw that the way the Proud Boys are approaching this protest is they're going to be wearing all black and trying to infiltrate. Um, I guess call them Antifa and people on the left to be amongst them for some reason. I'm not sure what their goal is here, but
Ima-
yeah,
Imagine all of a sudden Joe Biden's the president. All the Proud Boys people start wearing black and masks and everything, and then all the Antifa people who are happy that Joe Biden is the president start wearing like American flags
yeah.
and all this stuff. Imagine that. That would be something.
Oh, that would be something. But it's going to be really
Yeah.
interesting to see, the violence that unfolds following the certification for Joe Biden, because I mean, there's no course of action that this like works out in favor for the Republican Party or for the people that are going to be objecting to the certification. Like they're going to split the House and the Senate are going to split,
Mhm.
and they both the House and the Senate have to agree on the objection that was brought forward, and that's not going to happen. There's no way that the Republican House, I'm sorry, the Democratic House is going to somehow like see the light all of a sudden and vote in favor of like decertifying Pennsylvania. Like it's not going to happen.
Right.
And also, I don't think there's really,
Right.
I don't think there's actually any.
It would have to be multiple states too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I also don't see. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, Jesus Christ, he'd had to lose so much ground. Well, I guess. All right.
Yeah.
So this is one thing I have not looked into. So for each time that the Republicans object, I wonder if like that like restarts the clock for 2 hours. So like essentially, could the Republicans, object the certification for like every swing state that voted in favor for Joe Biden, and like essentially filibuster the certification process, like draw it. I mean, you could draw it out for 10, 20 hours maybe, and still you'd
Yeah.
have
I
the same
mean,
result.
right.
But
It's
you could
just
make it
just
you could.
it's a waste of time. It's a distraction. There's more important shit going on. I mean, uh, they want to do that instead of talking about um, how do we improve the vaccination game. How do we get more money into people's pockets right now, people who are struggling. How do we address the Russian attack? How do we there's so many important things going on right now that are just not being dealt with because they're all concerned about basically these political. It's a fireworks show, it's a distraction, and because of that the important shit's not being addressed, and it's very frustrating. um I got this text. I just want to read. I got this the other day. I don't recognize the number. Um, so I don't know who this is from. I'm on both. I'm on some mailing lists for both Democrats and Republicans, so I don't know what side this is coming from. But it just says, Zachary, calling all patriots. We hope to see you in Washington, D.C., January 6th, 2021. Reply, count me in or stop to opt out. It's like, who wants to see me in Washington, D.C.? Why? What's going on? Well, of course, it's for the protest thing. They're trying to get people out there. I'm sure both sides are. And again, I just hope I don't want to see violence. I don't want people to get hurt. The outcome is inevitable. Joe Biden is going to be the next president. And right now, what they're trying to do is it's all about personal gain. All these Republicans that are objecting, even though Joe Biden's going to be the next president, regardless, they're trying to tap into Trump's base a little bit. And there's a good chance Josh Hawley Ted Cruz try to run for president in 2024. Same thing with some of the other politicians that are objecting. They're just trying to tap into Trump's base, keep Donald Trump happy, because if they don't object, Trump's probably gonna, support a primary challenge there against them. It's pure politics, and it's just an example of how our bipartisan political system is beginning to eat itself, and it's eating us. It's chewing away at our democracy, because all the important shit's just being ignored.
Mhm. Yes.
It's sad, real sad.
Yeah, sucks. Yeah, it's I think unfortunately when it comes to objecting the Electoral College, it's is it just commonplace now? I think that's what we're going to see. I don't see
Probably every election.
Yeah, as I don't see our country taking a path that we're not going to see the same bullshit come 2024 or 2028. It's just going to be
Yep.
more of this all the time. But I think this, at least what happens, on Wednesday. I mean, tensions are going to be running high on Wednesday, considering how Georgia plays out on Tuesday, how long and how dramatic the certification of college takes on Wednesday. I think it give us, it's kind of a look into, the next 4-8 years of this country and where you're going to see more of.
Yeah. I just hope we can come together a bit. Yeah, tensions are very high right now. They're going to be high throughout the rest of the week with the Georgia election and the certification on Wednesday, like you said. We just had this. Are we ready to go to the next topic?
Yeah, let's go
jump into it. Do we have any more
Yeah.
points on this? So,
No.
a few days ago, Nancy Pelosi's home and Mitch McConnell's home were both targeted by vandals. Tensions are high right now. People are pissed off. They see that the government is not working for them. They're constantly playing, like Andrew Yang said during one of the debates, the Republicans and Democrats are playing, you lose, I lose, you lose, I lose. But really, it's the people that are losing the whole time. Basically, vandals spray painted things about, give me my money. We need UBI on Nancy Pelosi's home, and Mitch kills the poor on Mitch McConnell's home. I just, that is not the way civilized societies act. Yes, we need more stimulus. People are hurting. Government needs to work for us, but I just can't support vandalism, or destruction of private property. It's just, we're not animals. We are human beings. We are a civilized society, and accepting that, allowing that kind of behavior is just moving the needle away from civilization and closer to barbarism. I don't know, maybe you disagree with me, Jeremy, but I was pretty disturbed, honestly, when I saw specifically what they were writing. I mean, I'm feeling like this is Yang Gang people who are very good people. I'm a huge supporter of Andrew Yang. I do not want the UBI movement being tied to what I kind of see as something that borderlines terrorism.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's not a good look. The UBI movement definitely does not need to be painted or even associated with the radical arm of the progressive radical arm of the Democratic Party. That is what we do not need to be. Nor Man, I'd be willing to say that if it does travel down that direction, then I would leave the movement in a heartbeat, because there's no place for success or for change in that realm of politics. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
any chance of it becoming reality be gone at that point. But that being said, it's all right. So what happened with Pelosi and McConnell's house? All right, you take the UBI thing or the stimulus thing out of it altogether, and just and attacks on their home in general, just generally speaking, in the context of the pandemic, in the context of the failure of Congress to actually act and provide meaningful relief for millions of Americans. I think it is like in some shape. I'm not sure. All right, I'm going to hesitate. I'm gonna think out loud here. All right, so these are just
Yeah.
things I'm thinking in the moment. All right, how if that's not appropriate, like if at least putting some fear into them, if in times of crisis, in a time of pandemic, when people's livelihoods are being destroyed, they're being ripped away from them because of their direct actions, Mitch McConnell's and Nancy Pelosi's. What is the appropriate response given like the current structure of things? All right, given that like you can't recall them, you can't. They're not even going to be up for re-election until 2022. I mean, Mitch McConnell he just won re-election. Their term's like 6 years, right? So, I mean, what's
Yeah.
the actual recourse of action that Americans can take that actually like are meaningful in any way? Like, you can write them a fucking letter. Well, do you live in their district? Well, if you don't, they're not going to read it. Like you can like maybe get call and leave a voicemail. Doubt that. Pretty sure they probably turned their voicemails off long ago. Like I don't know what American people are supposed to do besides like bitch about the situation on Twitter, or or set up a fucking GoFundMe account or at OnlyFans. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what people are supposed to do, and I don't think that what would happen should be surprising. And I mean, I'm surprised, quite frankly, that we haven't seen anybody from Congress be assassinated yet. Like that's what I'm like really
Mhm.
surprised. Like it's I think the American people, for the most part, have handled themselves fairly well. Speak outside of like when you have all right, so when you take away Black Lives Matter, and when you take the things that they were protesting were very different from like the economic well-being of the nation, right? They were targeted at a specific set of issues that also happened to include other issues that were mostly unknown to the people protesting, right? So when it came to protests against Congress and how they're handling this pandemic, it was really just people from the right that were out there in the streets protesting. And largely speaking, not always, largely speaking, they handled themselves very quite well in those demonstrations. Um, Given how Congress just dropped the ball, or the Senate just dropped the ball on the $2,000 stimulus, and just kind of shafted the American people here. Man, like I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what is appropriate, and like I said, it's predictable. I
Mhm.
just said earlier that something like this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely predictable. And I agree that, I am kind of surprised that there actually haven't been really all that many assassination attempts of Congress people over the past few years. I mean, the only one that I could really think of offhand is the Republican baseball practice, but that was like 4 years ago. That wasn't during the pandemic. That was quite a few years ago
no,
already.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
right? Steve
yeah. I think
Scalise, right?
yeah, I think that
Is that
predated.
his name?
Um, yeah, like, a bunch of people got shot. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
only one. Yeah, well, I think only one person died. And it's so long ago, or it feels like so
yeah.
long
It
ago.
was a while ago. So yeah, overall, I mean, the American people have handled themselves well, but I mean, the reason why the graffiti thing just disturbs me so much is because even though the messages were on Pelosi's house, for example, $2,000, cancel rent, we need UBI, we want everything they wrote, and there was a severed pig's head with blood in the driveway. The real message, which may have not been written in words, but the implied message is, we know where you live, we have demands, you need to act on those demands, right? It's a threat, and it's just completely unacceptable. Um, how should the American people handle the situation? Vote these people out of office. Congress, Nancy Pelosi, people in Congress, every 2 years they're up for reelection. All right, that 2 years goes by pretty damn fast. This person's been in office for what, like 40 something years now. She's been a congresswoman. Get her out. I mean, just get her the hell out of there. Organize against her. Do it. But they keep on putting her back in. And if you have the time to like figure out where these people live, you go out, you buy spray paint, you figure out how to sneak onto their property, and I mean, obviously, this was a coordinated attack, the coordinating with people across the country because it happened on the same night. If they have that much organization and ability, then you know what? I'm pretty damn sure they have the ability to get money somehow. To get a job, to do something. I mean, we live in the age of the gig economy, where if you don't have a job, you can easily sign up for Uber or for something and figure out some way to get some kind of income. I know that there's a lot of people out there who can't do that because maybe they have physical or mental disadvantages, right? I mean, I'm very sympathetic to that. But if you're able-bodied, you should be able to work and make money, unless your government, your local government, has completely shut down the economy, where there is no way, there is no Uber that you could sign up for temporarily or anything. So I mean, that's a local issue. That's not something that Mitch McConnell can overturn, because that's Los Angeles saying you can't work. So I mean, he shouldn't be targeted for that. And if you do fall into that category where you absolutely can't get a job because you have some kind of disability preventing you, then you're probably not jumping over the fence with spray paint to go spray paint on Nancy Pelosi's house either. So I mean, these are people who probably could be figuring out a way to pick themselves up by their bootstraps to some extent. I mean, this is America. This is the land of the individual and individual responsibility. You need to be able to better yourself. I happen to think universal basic income would improve one's ability to better themselves, and so I think it's a good policy. But are you entitled to that? Is it yours and the government's just withholding it from you because they're evil? No. The entitlement, the sense of entitlement in this country, I think, is getting out of control. People feel that they're entitled to everything. You're not. You got to work for it. You need to make something of yourself. You are responsible for you, and nobody else is responsible for you. Right? That's the way it is. That's reality. I know a lot of people within the Yang Gang don't want to hear that, but it's the damn truth, and it's important, because you're going to get nowhere in life if you just want a handout, and if your whole goal is to be completely dependent on the government, you're going to have a very difficult life. People need to take individual responsibility, do something to better themselves. Sign up for Uber or Grubhub or DoorDash, TaskRabbit. I signed up for TaskRabbit, and I've been doing very well from it. And there, Thumbtack. There's a million. There's so many opportunities out there that you don't even need to apply, well, you got to apply, but you don't even have to go through a formal interview process to get a job. You could there's no interview to drive for Uber. You could do it and be drive. I mean, you got to have a car for it. Yeah, I mean, there are some, the barriers to getting a basic job in the age of the gig economy are pretty low, and you know, um, you can't just be dependent on the government. You can't expect the government to do the right thing, because for since the inception of the United States, we've never always done the right thing. Okay, I mean, this is a country that had slavery, and we've done a lot of bad stuff. We had Jim Crow. That's the government. All right, we can't be dependent on the government. People need to be able to provide for themselves, and just demanding, Mitch McConnell will give me my money. It's not your money.
Yeah, maybe
Bit of a
if
rant.
they,
I wasn't.
maybe if they had like refined their messaging a little bit better, like maybe, maybe I'm trying to think. I I do think vandalism does hold a spot somewhere in the spectrum of what's acceptable when it comes to peaceful protest. I think I think there is a way to effectively leverage it, and I think there actually is there exists an avenue of which it can be used to actually further your cause. What we saw New Year's Day was not that. I don't think that that all of a sudden we have people that were like on the fence of like, man, I don't know if these $2,000 checks are a good idea or not. I don't think they woke up and saw that and be like, oh, yep, no, yeah, they were totally right. It's 2,000 all the way. That didn't convince fucking anybody.
But what it does do is the people who are on the fence, who maybe might have thought it was a good idea, and then all of a sudden you see advocates of the $2,000 of UBI, basically. Okay, I mean, the fact that it said something about UBI on Nancy Pelosi's house, to me, makes it seem like this was gang people. They also attacked both a Republican and a Democrat. It wasn't like they were just attacking Mitch McConnell. It was both. So it makes it makes the movement seem toxic, and for people on the fence, I think there's going to be people who don't necessarily want to be associated with the toxic movement.
Yeah.
I'm glad Andrew Yang hasn't come out and endorsed these graffiti attacks.
Right.
I don't know if he said anything about it, but I just
not that I've seen. But I guess if it's a big complicated mess. I think I think for the most part, after Tuesday and especially after Wednesday, like no one's going to give a fuck about what happened at Nancy Pelosi's Mitch McConnell's house after that. Like, I don't think that that's going to have lasting damage against the Yang Gang or Yang after he announces that he's going to run for mayor. Like, I don't think that's not going to stick. Like, you can't pin what happened there on Andrew Yang, or necessarily, I wouldn't say.
No.
I don't think that you can pin that on the Yang Gang either. I mean, like Black Lives Matter has had universal basic income as part of their platform for a long time now. That's like UBI is like now like it's outside like the realm of like strictly a Yang Gang thing. That's supposed to be the plan. Like if you support Black Lives Matter, you're supposed to be on board with UBI. But how many fucking people on the street do you think actually even know that? Like close to none of them. Like if you round to the nearest number, it's zero, right? Like it's which is probably, in all honesty, a good thing. Because I don't think that those people are going to bring about any meaningful or positive change in this country whatsoever either. So good. I'm glad that I can't believe I'm saying I'm glad they're not advocating the UBI message any louder, because they would just fuck it up even further.
That's a good point. All right. So, by the way, we Nancy Pelosi, she just won a fourth term as Speaker of the House just today. So that's
Yeah.
breaking news. Of
Yeah.
course, when this podcast comes out, it will be one day later. But she retains her speakership position, and Kevin McCarthy wins another term as House Minority Leader. So no change there as well.
Yeah, rather narrowly too.
Should we do? What's
Well,
that?
I think she won by like 7 votes. I think. Like it wasn't like a landslide. There was quite a few Democrats. Or I'd say quite a few, but a handful of Democrats that I think abstained from voting for her. Just didn't vote at all.
I think that's usually the case. You know, I don't think she won overwhelmingly last time either. You know, it's like she's like the one person that they all kind of like, but not really like. You know, and if she can win without a lot of people voting for her, like there'll be people who they're just not feeling the pressure to actually get out and vote. If it was competitive, then I don't think there would have been people abstaining from that vote. But there was no real challenge to her speakership.
No.
Just something I thought we should note because that did happen today.
Yeah, well, shit, we can talk about. I guess why it matters to a lot of people in the progressive side of politics was there was a, well, I just say all progressive politics, but many on the progressive side, is they were really behind Jimmy Dore's force to vote, and what Jimmy Dore was able to put together, or was attempting to put together, was a coalition of Democratic House representatives that were going to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi unless she decided that she was going to bring Medicare for all for a vote on the floor. And it gained a lot of traction. It was a big deal online for a few weeks, really. It gained some traction and ultimately went nowhere. There are many on the progressive side of things that are disappointed with how things played out regarding the vote for Nancy Pelosi.
Mhm.
And also not a fan of Nancy Pelosi either. I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all either, but man, I think the sooner we get rid of Nancy Pelosi, probably the better. You know, I think one thing that the Speaker of the House and one thing the Senate Majority Leader, like what I feel like they function as more than anything is just to be like a target of hate, like a punching bag for for their respective party. That like you can say like all these terrible things about Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and essentially get away with it, right? Like it's like you can be a Democrat and talk shit on Nancy, you can be a Republican and talk shit on Mitch. Less often that happens on the Republican Party that does Democrats, but it does happen. But it's I think that's like more than anything, like the purpose that they serve. It's just to be like a black hole that just sucks up all the hate from the party.
Mhm.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi comes out looking like shit. Not so much the Democratic Party. Mitch McConnell comes out, oh man, fuck up, terrible. I mean, Mitch McConnell is probably like one of the most hated people in this country. But people hate Mitch McConnell more than they hate the Republican Party overall. I'm not sure if there's anything more I want to say other than that,
true.
but I think
That's
like
true.
whoever
That's a
you,
good point. I mean,
it's like whoever you put in that position,
absolutely.
right? Like in my mind, like I think Tim Ryan would make an excellent Speaker of the House. Like I'm not sure if there's anybody in the House right now that could do a better job than Tim Ryan. However, I don't know if he really is the right guy for the job because, well, you just have to be hated like the entire time. And it's like somehow Nancy Pelosi's like fucking cool with that shit. Like she like it doesn't seem to faze her. Like it would like you think
she's got,
I guess, hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's
ice cream. So
yeah. But yeah, it's if I could like make Congress into like my if I could just like decide who gets what, Tim Ryan would be my guy for Speaker of the House because I think he's
yeah, I agree. He's a solid dude for sure.
Yeah, solid dude, champion of the
He's
working
not
class.
over. Yeah, yeah. I liked Tim Ryan a lot. Um, he's not overly ideological.
No,
He would definitely make a good speaker.
yeah, tough on China. You don't see a whole lot on the
Mhm.
left
Yep.
that are tough on China like he is about reshoring jobs and
Hmm.
you know changing trade deals. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I think my opinion there is in the minority, and people would rather. I guarantee you in this country, people on the left would rather see AOC as fucking Speaker of the House than Tim Ryan. If you're gonna take a poll, and probably I'm sure it's like name recognition only there, but that's how it would go down.
Yeah.
She would win in a fucking
Yep.
landslide.
Yeah, and that would be that would be scary. Nothing would get done.
It's
Um,
like it'd be like one position. Like I kind of wish that the American public at large voted for that, but I know it's not possible.
yeah, because it impacts it impacts everybody.
Yeah,
It's
mhm,
a critically important position, but I mean it's one that we don't vote on directly. Same thing with majority leader.
right.
That would be interesting if we democratize that a
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, which is still, well, I guess, well, I guess it would. I'm trying to think of the downs. What would be the downsides to that? Well, you'd have another campaign you'd have to pay attention to. I guess I don't know. I think it's an idea
Yeah,
worth considering.
yeah, yeah. I'd have to think about it a little bit more. I don't know. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
um, should we do some predictions for 2021?
Yeah, let's go, man. Oh, yeah, well, first one I'll make is I already mentioned it. Andrew Yang will run for mayor.
Yeah, I think so. There's a very good
Mm-hmm.
chance.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor of New York, of course, which will be interesting because a lot of people there are not happy with Bill De Blasio.
Yeah.
Did you see the thing? Did you see the thing with him dancing in Times Square?
Oh yes, yes. Oh man. I mean,
No. Yeah.
speaking of most hated men in America, Bill De Blasio is definitely on that list too. Like fucking
Yeah.
top 10. Like
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, what's he thinking? I mean, you're telling everybody you can't go to Times Square for New Year's this year. I mean, and that's the big
Yeah.
tradition. Everyone goes. Which, as a native New Yorker, I don't know why anybody would want to do that. You wait in the freezing cold until midnight for the ball to drop, packed in like sardines, and if you have to if you have to use the bathroom, you lose your spot, right?
Mhm.
So you have people actually wearing diapers,
Yeah.
waiting for hours, just
Yeah.
pissing themselves. And it's disgusting, So De Blasio, because of the virus, rightfully so, said we can't do this year. But then he goes, and
Yeah.
he gets Times Square all to himself. You know, come on, what a hypocrite.
Oh.
Um, not cool, not
Mm.
cool. So yeah. Anyway, that'd be interesting if Yang runs. That'd be real
Yeah,
interesting.
it will be. Yeah, which I mean, I think all the evidence points to he's going to, like, he was caught if filming commercials or promos for him
Mhm.
running, where he says, "I'm Andrew Yang and I'm running for mayor of New York." Like, like if he's on camera saying that to someone, then it's
Yeah.
it's
So,
all but a guarantee at this point. Which, I mean, all right. So, like, as
so
far as predictions for
yeah.
2021, like my predictions, like in large, are like rather grim. Like they're not all that optimistic. But fuck, if I can at least have Andrew Yang running for mayor, like god damn it, that's like one thing I can fucking look forward to.
Yeah, that would be good. Supposedly he's waiting until after the Georgia elections to announce. So if he's going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to announce before Tuesday. So I mean, we could know by the end of the week. It's that would be really cool. Could happen on my birthday. That would be a nice birthday surprise. I'm not going to say when my birthday is on the air though. Um, uh, I got one for you. Coronavirus, I think for the first 6 months is still going to be a big deal, but after that, it's going to start to fade
Mhm.
away. We're going to get, as we get vaccinate more and more people, um, uh, the virus will become something that's in our rear view mirror. But for the first 6 months, it's still going to be a pretty big deal because it's taken us so long to get these vaccinations out. But tied to that is that even though the virus is fading away and the economy is beginning to reopen all over the place, I think the work from home trend is here to stay.
Mhm.
I think all these jobs that all of a sudden became work from home jobs, I don't think that's gonna. I mean, they may do a hybrid system where like once a week you have to go to the office, or maybe even once a month or something. But I think a lot of people moved during this pandemic out of the cities to the suburbs or even across state lines, and it's going to be real difficult for these companies to say, hey, you got to come back now, you got to come back, and you got to be in the office at 8 o'clock. I think that's going to be real difficult.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the work from home trend is here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and I think also what we'll see is we'll see some ripples with that within the commercial real estate market too. Like if like
Mhm.
we're also going to lose a lot of jobs from these work at home things too. I mean, I think some companies have found that working from home people are if at least as productive, in some cases more productive. It depends on what kind of work that you're doing. But I think we'll also see a lot of downsizing, and I think it could also lead to
Mhm.
some outsourcing. Like if it turned out like, hey, this whole
Mhm.
time no one needed to be in the office. Well, like, do they even need to be in the state? Do they even need to be in this country? Right. So I think that will
Right.
potentially have real big ramifications in the long run. So also when it comes to, um, I mean, automation. You know, if you're working in a call
Mhm.
center, and now you're doing your job at home, well, yeah, it's probably not. I mean, like the one thing this pandemic has done for sure is excel the trend of automation like 10 fucking years. So I think
Mhm.
we're going to see automation of jobs away, such as call centers, fast food workers for sure. I mean, that's going to be a trend I think we'll
Mhm.
see real big in 2021. Will be automation in fast food, and um, also cashier jobs. I just saw um, I do you was that a specific grocery store that was advertising that that grocery cart? Well, anyway, there's this I believe it's a grocery store or a chain that's going to be introducing. It's a grocery cart, very similar. What they're trying to accomplish is like what Amazon does in their grocery stores, essentially, where you show up, you grab the stuff off the shelf, you put it in your cart, put it in your bag, walk out the door, you're on your way. No cashier, no
Yeah.
bullshit, just in and out, no problem. So I believe it's a chain of grocery stores. It could have just been a the technology creator. I could be mistaken. However, it's a shopping cart that has all the technology built into the cart itself. Right, so it's got a scale. It's got this one uses a scanner, so you still have to scan the shit as you put it in.
Wow.
It weighs your items for you. But man, like that level, like that's gonna be soon, and I think that we will see that
Yeah.
commonplace 2021, along with automated floor scrubbers, automated shelf scanners, automated truck unloaders. Like we're gonna see like not only did this pandemic like decimate tons of jobs, it also accelerated the technology that's going to decimate even more afterwards. So the you know
Yes.
the arguments that we were making um, for UBI and during the Yank campaign will be uh, only. I mean, I think a lot of people in the Yank will just be able to say, "Yeah, we told you so." Um,
Mhm. Yep, I agree with that.
year in, year out. So
Definitely. Um, Something else that I think is going to happen, as we're already seeing a ton of companies moving their offices, from the ones that still do have offices. They're relocating a lot from California, from New York to places like Texas and Florida and other Nevada, other low cost states.
mhm.
I think that trend is going to continue. And what's interesting about this is a lot of those tech jobs that are moving from California to Texas. Um, I think eventually this isn't going to happen overnight, but eventually it's going to lead to more diversity of opinion working and
Hmm.
diversity of thought working at these companies. You know, everybody criticizes big tech for being biased to the left, including myself. I think that they are. You know, whenever there's an issue with censorship, it's usually Twitter censoring somebody on the right or something, or suppressing a story that hurt Joe Biden. You know, that whole scandal with Twitter suppressing that New York Post article about Hunter Biden, like in the last week of the campaign. That was a
Yep.
big deal.
Yeah.
Um, I think this movement of tech companies from you know the from the California coast to Austin, Texas, is going to result in more people on the right, more conservatives getting jobs at these companies eventually, just because there's more conservatives in Texas. So we'll have to see. Uh, I don't. I'm not. I think that's going to happen, but I very well could be wrong in that too. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, those companies, those left companies, need to hire people on the right. You know, they could always still just decide to hire
Hmm.
lefties, or maybe something about tech attracts lefties. You know, I don't know, but I think relocating could kind of result in more diversity of thought at these companies.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think the way. Well, I'm not a Texas resident, so I don't know what it's like there on the ground. So I'm merely speculating here. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
if the trend continues that people continue to migrate to Texas, I don't think people's ideologies are really going to shift all that much. Um, I think it's really. I think the question becomes like, do we flip? We does Texas flip blue in 2024 or 2028? I think that's probably the
Mhm.
question. But I think Texas is a great fit for these tech companies because, like people always say, like you need lefties or you need liberals to come up with ideas for companies, but you need conservatives to run them. Right. So I think
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Texas is a great place for these lefties to you know dream up these ideas for these tech companies, and also a great place to recruit conservatives to effectively run them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. That's spot on. Um, I'll have to see if that happens or not. Um, but yeah, it definitely would be interesting. It's the same thing in Florida too. There's a lot of companies moving to
Yeah.
Florida. I think I heard Goldman Sachs is relocating to Florida from New York. Um, I think the major cities of New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, I think they're in for a reckoning, a very difficult
Hmm.
decade. You know, even though once the virus subsides a bit and we get the vaccines out, there may be a bit of a return to the cities. I think in the short term, I think over the long term, this experience has scarred so many people that uh, you know there may be some people who really just want to live in the city, so they'll move back. But I think over the
Hmm.
long term, people are going to think, hey, I can't be here forever. I gotta get to the suburbs. I gotta get to the country. And especially if the job is more accepting of that, if there's more work from home opportunities, it's going to be a lot of people saying, what the hell am I doing living in the city, paying $3,000 a month to live in a shoebox?
Hmm.
You know, I want to get out where there's more space, and where things are just cleaner because people aren't on top of each other, breathing in each other's germs. Um, So I think we're going to see a lot of growth in the suburbs and in the areas surrounding the cities, and in the less dense cities. Like Austin is not a dense city; it's really one big suburb. Um, it's going to continue to grow. Uh, So
Mhm.
yeah, that kind of sums up my 2021 predictions. I know it wasn't a very long list. You got anything else?
No, yeah, it's hard to predict how it's going to go now. I think how the Senate race plays out is going to be a huge deciding factor in how the rest of 21 plays out. And
Mhm.
man, there's so much potential. There's so much potential for things to get better, and there's so much potential for things to get so much worse. And I think we will soon find out which direction it's going to go.
Yeah, I do think the political climate will improve a lot. Um, Hopefully, maybe it's more of a hopeful thought than anything, but
Mm.
I tend to think the climate's going to improve a bit.
Yeah,
All right.
the potential exists. However, I
Yep.
think I'm in the camp that I really feel that this current political climate is kind of what we're stuck with for the next 10 years or so. Like
Mhm.
I don't think things are going to drastically improve this year unless drastic measures are taken. And I don't know. We'll see what kind of political will is there. I don't know. I'd say maybe come April, May is when we can start to see maybe some big ideas actually start making their way
Mhm.
through Congress. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. 2020 was a fucking blast. I don't care what anybody says. This shit, like, there was shit always going on. I mean, if you were bored with real life in 2020, God bless you, man. That's like, I don't know what else you could have been paying attention to that was like more exciting than real life in 2020. So I'm glad it's over, but man, that was one for the history books, man. That was a wild
Yep,
ride.
for sure. Crazy year. All right, should we wrap up on that note?
Hey,
It's a good
that's a good
place to
spot.
end.
I think so.
All right, let's do it. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff for us. And we'll be back next week.
Bye, everybody.